Today we're talking about street furniture. Street furniture is basically anything you find along the roadside that's put there for a functional purpose but can also have a decorative purpose as well. You can call it fire hydrants, phone booths, benches, signage, street lighting, and all kinds of things that fit into that realm. For example, today I'm standing right next to what we call a Keystone, and this particular style of box was very unique to the Los Angeles area. This box was produced by the Keystone Iron and Steel Works Company of Los Angeles, California. The company was only in business for a short time. In fact, it was only in business between the years of 1917 and 1928. The company made these boxes in addition to a line of fire hydrants, which are still used in the city even today. This particular box draws attention, though, because it is a fire alarm station, as you can see. It's painted red and white, and it says, "For fire, break glass, pull handle down, and let it go." There was a time when these boxes were very common in the Los Angeles area. In fact, boxes like this are still very common around the country and on the East Coast. This particular box, though, made by the Keystone Iron and Steel Works Company of Los Angeles, California, is very unique. In fact, it is more unique than its Gamewell counterparts. First, Keystone made these boxes for multiple purposes. This is just one purpose that you see here. These pieces were either made to be fireboxes. They could also be dual function. What you can't see here, and actually what's not here, but imagine this in your mind, is that one side of these boxes could be fire alarm stations, the other side could be a police telephone. You have to remember that in the early part of the century, before police cars had two-way radios, police officers had to communicate with the station somehow. Many times that meant finding a box like this one, going into the other side, which was usually painted blue, opening the box door, and finding a telephone. And that telephone would link them directly to the station. Finally, one of the other uses for this particular box is as a streetlight timing switch. There are many streetlight systems in Los Angeles even today, and this is the beautiful part about it, that still use these boxes as streetlight timing switches, and we'll talk more about that in the meantime. Our purpose today is to actually accomplish two goals. One, we want people to notice that this street furniture is out there, and there are a lot of ornamental pieces still out on Los Angeles streets and roadsides. Second, we're going to take you through the restoration process, and the restoration process looks at this particular box. So sit back and enjoy, and let's go through our special report today of street furniture. These boxes served the city at a time, and you have to really think back on this, when there were not a lot of telephones in the city. Today we teach our kids and we teach ourselves to dial 911 in the event of an emergency. Well, back in the days before telephones were widely used, these boxes were a lifesaver for any household that had a medical emergency or fire emergency. People at that time ran out, they found the nearest box to their house, they would break the glass, they would pull the handle down, and they would wait. The local engine company would come to that box, and they would find out from the person who reported the alarm exactly what was going on and what the exact address was. After looking at this piece, I could see that it was in fantastic condition. There were no breaks in the ironwork, and the rust spots overall were very localized. What's going to have to take place at this point is that the rust will have to be sanded off, along with any loose areas of paint. An oil-based primer will have to be applied so we make sure that no rust bleeds through the final coat of paint. Finally, the finished coat of paint will be added to the Keystone. The paint scheme will be very similar to what the city of Los Angeles would have used when they placed this unit in service. By this time, the sanding process has been completed. What you see now is a gray coat of primer being applied to the pole. Please note that a separate coat of oil-based primer was previously applied to the post section of the Keystone. Alright guys, it looks like the first coat of red is going on the Keystone. You can see the red that I'm going to use right here, and some of you guys might have a real issue with it because I'm not sticking to the usual kind of dark red. I'm using more or less, well, actually I'm using an apple red, which is what I prefer using because it's just a little bit brighter and a little bit more vivid than the dark red. So let's go on and let's see how it looks as we apply the first coat of red. For the purpose of the camera, the keystone is fully assembled, but for the actual restore, all three sections of this unit will be removed and restored individually. Starting at the top, the main alarm box will be removed, followed by the middle section called the harp, and that section is the part which holds the box. Again, each part will have to be sanded, primed, and painted. Once that's completed, the whole unit will be put back together in its finished form. For those of you who are curious, this unit weighs in excess of 200 pounds and requires 2 to 3 of us to assemble and disassemble. Attempting to move any part of this unit could result in serious bodily injury. Now, fire alarm stations in totality went out of use in the Los Angeles area in roughly 1975, and there were several things that contributed to that demise. First, in the 1960s, especially during the 1965 Watts riots, these boxes were used to draw fire crews into certain areas so they could be shot at, pummeled with rocks, or just generally beat up on. Second, there was a nationwide push to develop the 911 emergency system. So once the 911 emergency system was totally in place in the 1970s, these boxes were finally taken out of service and have since disappeared. The poles on these units actually extended a few feet into the ground. This made for a difficult situation for city crews who would have to reinstall these units after accidents or when the entire unit was being removed from service. In many cases, the crews would remove the harp and the box, leaving the decapitated pole in place. Up to this point, you've seen a lot of the larger parts being worked on. What comes with this territory is a lot of fine detail work that has to be completed. The first thing I learned about these boxes is that each part is individually numbered. In this case, you see the number 446 on the rear of the alarm box. As I was disassembling this unit, I found several other numbers on the other parts. For example, on the finial, which is on top of the box, this part was numbered 448. Inside of the box, the block that holds the finial snug to the top of the box was numbered 447. The harp portion was numbered 445, and the lip of the pole itself was numbered 444. I got around to removing the door from the box assembly. The door was carefully scrubbed so that all of the old paint was removed. The result was a completely stripped door that was ready to be primed and painted. That part would be easy, but the fine detailing would come in stenciling all of the lettering you see here. There are several ways of doing this. Some experts in this area recommend using a paint pen, which can be found at most local paint stores and art centers. In this case, I've elected to use an artist's brush and white paint that matches the original lettering found on these boxes. I can tell you, from doing this previously with several Gamewell boxes, this kind of work is not easy to do. There are a lot of opportunities to make mistakes, and when that happens, you have to get out a wet rag and possibly even repaint the master coat of red. Here you see the simple task of reattaching the door to the main box alarm assembly. This is how it looks, all done. So let's take a look inside. For the sake of authenticity, I placed a Gamewell alarm mechanism inside the box. It's not properly mounted, but that will be done later. Again, Keystone didn't make any of the parts that went inside of these units. The City of LA purchased alarm mechanisms phones, and time switches from other vendors and place them into the boxes themselves. That it looks good. You can see that up top, the Keystone logo actually came out much better than even I had expected. Early on when I put it on, it came out not quite right, but a little bit of work with the red paint made it look good, and you can see the rest of this particular door looks really good. It looks really original. Even the identification plaque, the 4511 plaque, looks good, and right down here you can see even these letters are done. Keystone Iron and Steel Works of Los Angeles, California. I almost didn't do these particular letters because they were so small, but I thought in this case it might be worth the risk. So, a little more work to be done on it. The handle has to be put inside the box. That's going to be a little bit of an interesting exercise because there really is no post to hang the handle on. And this particular part is staying open right now because it still needs to dry, but it still needs the piece of glass placed inside. And that will come at some point. So that's where we are after day 10. It looks really good. Let's take a look at it from head to toe. And here you have it. After 2 weeks of work, here is the restored Keystone Fire Alarm Station. The hook has been added, but it's not secured to the actual door because the mounts and screw holes inside have been sawed down. That will require some work later on to correct. The pane of plate glass in the break glass window will also have to be added at a later date. An interesting footnote to this entire restoration revolves around the guide I used in restoring this piece. The only guide I had was a Keystone box that I saw several years ago that is on display at Los Angeles City Fire Department headquarters in downtown Los Angeles. A long time ago, when these units were removed from service, they were sold for scrap metal. Today they end up in the collections of city workers, the department, and people like me who know their historical value. Thank you for joining us on this very special edition of Forgotten LA. The Keystone box is only one of many pieces of historical street furniture that lines our streets and throughways. So while you're driving or while you're walking, take time to take notice of some of these pieces. You might find that they're very interesting. If you're one of those people who has vandalized or broken some of these pieces of street furniture, think twice the next time you do it. One of these days you just might find yourself on the opposite end, restoring one of these pieces back to its old glory. I'm Chin Thomasanksi reporting from Los Angeles. We'll see you next time.